If you've seen Russian Doll, then you'll know that the Acolyte creator, Leslye Headland, likes to blow our minds and twists our expectations as much as possible. So, when she was announced as the showrunner of a Disney Plus Star Wars series, expectations were high, and now that the first 2 episodes have dropped, it's clear that Headland is still up to her mind-bending tricks. In the 2-episode premiere of the newest entry in the Star Wars universe, the series introduces a massive reveal that was somehow kept under wraps until the show debuted. The Acolyte star, Amandla Stenberg, isn't playing one role, but 2. The character that was teased in the trailers, May, is actually one half of a set of twins, both played by Stenberg. The other being our actual in-character, the courageous ex-Jedi mechanic Osha. It's rare these days that a project of this size can still surprise viewers, but The Acolyte does just that. The massive twist was always part of Headland's plan, but it evolved as she worked on the show and found her creative groove.
It's interesting because I had pitched them originally just as sisters, but once I had gotten the job and the more that I worked on it, I felt like twins were such a, well, Luke and Leia, like it felt like in exploring the light and the dark side and the balance or imbalance between those two things, it felt more interesting to me that the sisters were twins. That being said, I found out later that Kathleen Kennedy is a twin. Which I didn't know at the time. So obviously she was on board with that idea.
Right.
For Stenberg, crafting the dual performance was all about defining how their life as twins had shaped both May and Osha, and working out how to showcase that as a performer.
Well, twins are so fascinating. So the first thing I really had to think about is what kinds of twins are they? You know, there are some twins who feel incredibly identical visually, but also in their mannerisms and their personalities and their spirits. And because this was built with the intention and purpose of exploring the light and dark side of the Force, I felt like it would actually be great to just differentiate them from each other. And also, just from a storytelling perspective, I thought that would just be more fun to watch.
Stenberg also teased that as the show goes on, we'll learn more about Osha and May and their connection to the Force.
I thought often about the light and dark side of the Force and what we could convey about the Force through these 2 physical manifestations of the Force. And later, I think you'll learn more about that, and some of the choices that I made will make even more sense, hopefully.
The action begins after the death of a Jedi at the hands of May, who everyone thinks is dead. This leads to Osha being blamed for the killing. When her former teacher, Master Sol, learns that Osha has been accused of killing Master Indara, he and 2 of his fellow Jedi, Jecki, his loyal half-Thelan Padawan, and Yord, a recent addition to the Order who once trained alongside Osha, head out on a mission to bring the ex-Jedi to justice. Just as May and Osha are bringing something new to the Star Wars universe, so is the way the Acolyte presents the Jedi's role in the galaxy. Not only are we in the High Republic, an era that's never been on screen before, and one in which the Jedi are at the height of their power, but we're also seeing the Jedi as harsh leaders, using shocking tactics that will likely change people's concept of the Order as inherently good or moral. In the face of that, though, we meet Master Sol, who defies many of the Jedi's strict and often emotionless rules.
저도 지금 말씀하신 부분이 가장 재미있었던 부분이에요.
Yeah, this is an element that I thought was the most interesting part of the show, actually. So I really wanted my role of Master Sol to encompass a lot of humanistic aspects, and I wanted to be able to express that element really well. I like that he is so direct and has such strong emotions, especially towards Osha. And you would think that a Jedi Master, right, never feels fear, but Master Sol actually does feel that fear, and I really paid attention to how he expresses that and wanted to create such a unique model of a Jedi in that way, because not only are they just brave, you know, I think having that human element to a Jedi is really important.
I was really excited to explore that balance. So being able to explore these Jedi from a place of, you know, and lack of better words, but they're finding their humanity, finding that, like, you know, Yoda, even as good as he is, could be pushing for something more. Yord puts a lot of his eggs in the basket of the Jedi are going to push this galaxy to the places that it needs to be. And you know when putting a lot of eggs in a basket is always a little bit dangerous.
As she attempts to kill the Jedi on her list, May's only ally is the shifty survivor Qimir. He's a rare main character in the galaxy far, far away, as he isn't aligned with either side of the Force and is instead just trying to survive. It's something that Manny Jacinto, who plays the character, found intriguing.
It's very much coming at it from a standpoint of how does a regular person navigate such huge powers in this galaxy. Like, how do you what is your weapon? What is your power against, if you have to fend off the dark side, if you have to fend off the Jedi? You don't. With Qimir, it's just very much it's his own. It's his own path.
That side of Qimir is key to the character's relationship with May.
There's a relationship there, but maybe it's more so from a selfish standpoint. Like, how does he use May in order to appease her and her master, in order for him to survive? It's, at the end of the day, it just comes down to how does a regular person survive in these extraordinary circumstances.
Now that the secret at the core of the Acolyte is out, Jacinto is also full of praise for Stenberg's dueling performances.
Kudos to Amanda, and honestly just in awe of her performance because it's also incredibly subtle. You know, playing twin roles is obviously a challenge, and maybe the go-to is kind of go to the extreme of things, but for the Amanda's performance, it's very very nuanced. It's very up close, and you see it more so in her eyes as opposed to big gestures and distinct variations within both twins. It's very, very subtle, which I really appreciate.
There's another aspect to the twins at the center of the Acolyte too, and that's the way that the pair use the Force, or in Osha's case, don't use the Force. It's clear that Osha, after leaving the Jedi Order, didn't continue her training, and we see her struggle to use the Force as she tries to escape the prisoner transport she's trapped on during the premiere episode. That's juxtaposed with May, who has been training with a mysterious master, and the fruits of that labor are clear in her stunning hand-to-hand force fighting style that invokes Hong Kong cinema with fluid wirework and brutal strikes.
We had an incredible action choreographer, Chris Cowan, who also worked on the Darth Vader scene in Rogue One. He worked on Shang-Chi. He came up under Brad Allen, who's just a legend. And Chris and I worked really close together in crafting them. But Chris was the one that really was able to bring his enormous amount of skill to making these more nuanced, less action-y, meaning cropped up shots, a bunch of display of strength. It was much more this graceful, lots of wire work, incredible stunt doubles, the stunt team, Kalina and Cassie, who doubled for Amandla. These were all, and Mark Ginther, these were all people that were instrumental in bringing that to life.
I have a little experience with stunt choreography, but this was really my first time deep diving into it, and we would have these fantastic meetings between Chris Cowan, our stunt coordinator, and Jung-Jae Lu, who was my trainer and my kung fu master, and Leslye in pre-production. And thankfully we had all this time in pre-production to think about these things together. But as I started to formulate what I thought the character physically moved like, I was able to communicate that to my stunt girls, Cassie and Kalina, and talk to Chris and Leslye about it. And something that I saw already in the script was that this character had a tendency to be deceptive, that she didn't necessarily always win through brute force, but often that it was through some kind of trickery or subversion.
That led to the unusual and striking aesthetic of May's fighting style, which leans more into grace and quickness than brute force.
It seemed more interesting to me to have a female action archetype that was, quite feminine and seductive, and didn't necessarily always showcase her brute force, but rather was almost manipulative physically.
Let us know what you think of the big twins reveal in the comments, and for more on the Acolyte and more from a galaxy far, far away, stay tuned to IGN.